What happens when one name becomes too powerful for the sport itself? Can MotoGP truly grow if the Marquez era never ends? Before you read further, ask yourself this and don't answer it too quickly. If dominance becomes absolute, does greatness still inspire growth, or does it slowly suffocate everything around it? Like, comment, and subscribe if you believe MotoGP's future depends on this debate, because what you are about to read may challenge everything you thought you knew about success, legends, and the price of supremacy. There is a moment in every sport when victory stops feeling like celebration and starts feeling like inevitability, and inevitability, no matter how impressive, has a strange way of draining the pulse from competition. MotoGP, a championship built on danger, unpredictability, and human limits pushed to the edge, now finds itself staring into an uncomfortable mirror. In that reflection stands one name, towering, unyielding, impossible to ignore. Marc Marquez, a rider so gifted, so relentless, so historically significant that his presence alone reshapes the narrative of the entire grid. But here is the question no one dares to ask too loudly. When one name becomes too strong, can the sport around him still grow? For more than a decade, MotoGP has marketed itself as the ultimate test of man and machine, a theater where courage collides with chaos. New stars were supposed to rise, rivalries were meant to ignite, eras were expected to overlap and clash. Instead, the Marquez era arrived like a storm that refused to pass. At first, fans were mesmerized. Records fell. Limits shattered. What once seemed impossible became routine. The saves that defied physics, the overtakes that rewrote racecraft, the fearless attacks that left seasoned champions questioning reality itself. It was spectacular. It was historic. It was addictive. And yet, slowly, quietly, something else began to change. The suspense faded. When audiences tune in already knowing who is most likely to win, excitement transforms into observation. Awe replaces tension, but awe alone cannot sustain a global sport forever. MotoGP does not survive on respect alone. It thrives on uncertainty, on the belief that Sunday could belong to anyone brave enough to seize it. As Marquez continued to dominate, the championship's narrative narrowed. The spotlight no longer scanned the grid searching for stories. Fixated on one figure, one garage, one expectation. Everyone else became supporting characters in a story that felt pre-written. Is that fair to Marquez? Perhaps not. Greatness should never apologize for existing. History never punishes legends for being too good. And yet, sport is not only about the athlete. It is about the ecosystem. Manufacturers, sponsors, broadcasters, emerging markets, young riders watching from home, all of them depend on a sense of possibility. When the mountain looks unclimbable, fewer dare to start the ascent. Behind the scenes, MotoGP's commercial heartbeat reacts faster than its public statements suggest. Television ratings fluctuate not with skill, but with suspense. Social media engagement spikes during controversy, not predictability. Fans argue passionately when outcomes feel open, not when results feel inevitable. Even the most loyal supporters quietly drift when hope fades. They may still admire Marquez, but admiration does not always translate into obsession, and obsession is what fuels modern sport. There is also the psychological toll on the grid itself. Young riders enter MotoGP carrying dreams shaped by legends of the past, believing they too can carve their names into history. But racing against an era-defining force changes ambition into survival. When beating the benchmark feels impossible, goals shrink. Podiums replace titles. Respect replaces hunger. Over time, the collective aggression that defines MotoGP softens, not because riders lack talent, but because the ceiling feels sealed. And then comes the most dangerous shift of all, narrative fatigue. Every era needs a story arc: rise, conflict, challenge, resolution. The Marquez era, for all its brilliance, threatens to stretch endlessly unresolved, consuming oxygen that could nurture the next generation of icons. Fans do not turn away because Marquez wins. They turn away because the story no longer surprises them. The question becomes not who will win, but how soon. Not whether he can do it again, but whether anyone else ever will. Yet paradoxically, this same dominance is what gives MotoGP its most powerful dilemma. Remove Marquez, and the sport loses one of its greatest attractions. Keep him at the center, and the sport risks orbiting a single star until everything else fades into darkness. This is not a criticism of the rider. It is a warning about imbalance. Every ecosystem, even one fueled by talent and bravery, requires equilibrium to survive. MotoGP has faced dominant eras before, but never in a time where attention spans are shorter, competition for viewers is fiercer, and sports entertainment lives and dies by narrative velocity. Fans today demand drama, evolution, conflict. They want heroes, but they also want villains, rivals, and redemption arcs. A single unchallenged king may inspire respect, but rivalry is what creates religion, so the question sharpens, becoming impossible to ignore. Can MotoGP truly expand into new markets, captivate younger audiences, and sustain long-term growth if the championship remains trapped in the gravitational pull of one name? Or does the sport need disruption, even discomfort, to rediscover its soul? Some argue that dominance pushes others to rise, that greatness forces evolution, that Marquez's presence elevates the grid. But evolution requires belief, and belief requires the possibility of victory. When victory feels theoretical rather than tangible, motivation fractures. The danger is not that Marquez wins too much. The danger is that everyone else starts racing for second place without even realizing it. MotoGP now stands at a crossroads disguised as success. The trophies shine. The statistics dazzle. The legend grows. But beneath the surface, the sport wrestles with a truth it rarely voices. Growth demands competition, and competition demands uncertainty. Without it, even the fastest machines and bravest riders cannot outrun stagnation. And this is where the era of Marquez becomes more than a chapter. It becomes a test of whether MotoGP can balance honoring greatness while cultivating diversity of winners. A test of whether fans will continue to invest emotionally when outcomes feel scripted. A test of whether the sport can evolve without erasing its most powerful symbol. The next races, the next seasons, the next generation will answer these questions whether MotoGP is ready or not. Because history shows that no era lasts forever, but the damage of refusing to adapt can echo long after the champion is gone. Marquez the greatest asset MotoGP has ever had, or the shadow it must eventually escape to survive? That question is no longer hypothetical. It is the quiet tension running through every starting grid, every broadcast intro, every fan debate that refuses to die. And the most unsettling part is this: MotoGP may already be answering it, not with words but with silence where excitement once lived.